think we'll call to order. So call to order. This meeting of April 25th, 2018, City of Missoula Board of Adjustments is called to order. It is 7:32. Will the secretary please call roll?
Andy Short.
Here.
John Harrell. Sandy Mitchell. Sharon Palmer. Zach Reimer. Hans Hoffman.
Here.
Patrick Brittigam.
Here.
James Sage.
Here.
We have quorum with 5, and James will be installed as a regular voting member.
Okay. Present tonight are 4 regular members of the board and 1 alternate member. We therefore have a quorum. The minutes of the regular board meeting of September 27th, 2017 have been distributed in our packets. Are there any corrections to be made in the minutes? I believe I have 1 correction in the abstain. James, you were here at our last meeting, correct? And I think you abstained from the voting. Just a, yeah. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the September 27th, 2017 hearing with the change recommended by Mr. Short.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is the public comment section of the meeting. This is the time for members of the public to speak about matters that are not on the agenda for this meeting. The time limit for public comment is 3 minutes. All right, seeing none. Are there any staff announcements?
Hello, my name is Andrew Bond with Development Services. So we have 2 items on just staff announcements. Well, 3 actually. My name is Andrew Bond, and this is Daniel Shepke. We are new planners with Development Services.
Welcome.
And you will see us around. The second is we would like to put on the agenda for the next BOA meeting to adjust the time to 6 p.m. for these meetings so that they align with the other board meetings that we have. So next meeting, we can vote on that. And finally, be sure to speak into the mic and turning it on and off when you're finished. And that should be all I have. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, both of you. You got big shoes to fill. Okay, now to the staff announcements is done. It's on to the public hearings. We have 2 public hearings tonight for variance requests. The first variance on the agenda is a request by Jody Miller and Dale Horton for the property located at 3713 Creekwood Road. The second variance request is from John and Pamela Chinsky for the property located at 2110 and 2122 River Road. The public hearing is formal. The oral testimony given is recorded by the board secretary and serves as a record of the hearing. In addition to testimony, the record will include any documentary evidence submitted by the applicants and opponents, if any. This is the procedure we will follow. Development Service staff will present its report on the variance request. Then the applicant shall give its presentation. Following the applicant's presentation, the board will hear from anyone supporting the applicant's variance request. Thereafter, the board will hear from anyone opposing the application. The public hearing will then be closed, and the board will discuss and vote upon the application. 4 conditions are required to grant a variance. Strict application of the zoning ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty owing to conditions which are unique to the property. The zoning variance must be the minimum necessary to provide relief from the unnecessary hardship. The zoning variance is generally consistent with the overall purpose of this ordinance, and the zoning variance result in substantial justice being done, considering both the public benefit and the individual hardships. The burden of establishing all four of these conditions rests with the applicant. A majority vote required to obtain the variance. This means that 4 board members must vote to grant the variance. This board is a quasi-judicial body. Appeals of the decisions of the board are filed directly with the district court. May we have the staff report?
We have received, let me look at this first. We have, is this on? No.
Doesn't sound.
See orange. Is this on? Great. We have received a request for a variance for the property at 3713 Creekwood Road to build a detached garage in front of a house. The applicants for the variance are here, Dale Horton and Jody Miller. Oh. Excellent. The property is located in the Rattlesnake Creek area. This is Ward 1, and they're represented by the Upper Rattlesnake Creek Neighborhood Council. The legal definition of the parcel is Lot 12 of Eastbrook Addition. Eastbrook Addition was created in 1966 in Missoula County. This is the parcel. It is just over 35,000 square feet, but the creek crosses the property around 146 feet from the east front property line, and the rest of the property is a riparian area. This is an aerial image of the property and the surrounding houses. That's the house there with the blue roof. You can see there's a driveway and a slab where they park their cars. On the slab is where they're requesting a variance to build a detached garage. The area's land use is residential low, which recommends 1 to 2 housing units per acre, and west of the property is parkland. The area is zoned R20, which is a single-family zone, which allows 1 housing unit per 20,000 square feet. The house was built in 1987. At the time, the property was in Missoula County. In 1989, the area was annexed into the city. At that time, detached garages were allowed by the city's zoning code. The detached garage was part of the original design of the house, and in 1990, they poured the foundation for the garage. The applicants state in their letter that it is important to build the garage at the original location to preserve the intent of the design of the house. The house is designed to incorporate solar features. It faces the east and the south and receives sun for lighting during the day and also for heat. And the orientation of the house and the garage on the parcel creates a large south yard, which is advantageous for gardening and other activities. They also state in the report that it's important for the garage to be detached because an attached garage would require them to reconfigure the entryway of the house, require replacement of the existing slab foundation, create indoor air quality hazards, and would limit eastern sun exposure.
They want it to be detached.
They want it to be detached. Sorry, I got that backwards. Thank you, Denise. This is a rendering of the proposed garage. It matches the existing house in terms of roof pitch, trim, color, and other design details. It would be a 1-car garage with a 1-car carport. This is the site plan for the proposed garage. It would be 9 feet from the north side property line and 25 feet from the east front property line. The applicants could build an attached garage without a variance. However, it would need to meet setback requirements for houses in R20 districts, so it would need to be at least 15 feet from the north property line and 25 feet from the east property line. We sent out 8 notices to adjacent property owners with requests for comment and posted a notice on the site. We received back 6 notices, all of them in favor of approving the variance. We also mailed notices to city agencies. The only comment that we got back was from the engineering department, who noted the width of the right-of-way and said that no other site improvements would be required to build this garage. These are the 4 criteria that we use to determine whether or not we recommend approval or denial of a variance request. The first is whether application of the zoning standards creates an unnecessary hardship. We were not able to determine in this case that application of Title 20's standard that prohibits accessory structures in the front yards of houses creates an unnecessary hardship. Every house in all around Missoula is prohibited from having an accessory structure in the front yard, regardless of the design of the house or the orientation of the parcel to the sun. When Missoula changed this regulation in 2009 to prohibit accessory structures in front yards, they determined that whatever hardships created by this change in policy were necessary to promote the goals of the ordinance. The second criteria is that the zoning variance is the minimum variance necessary to provide relief from the unnecessary hardships. Again, we do not see that in this case that there is an unnecessary hardship. Also, they would be able to build a garage without a variance, either attached to the front of the house or a detached or attached garage on the side or back of the property. The third criteria, that the zoning variance is consistent with the overall purpose of this ordinance. One of the goals of Title 20 is to provide orderly development. And the purpose of the change of policy in 2009 was to create residential streetscapes that were lined with houses, not detached garages or carports. So we feel like denial of this variance request would be consistent with the overall purposes and goals of Title 20. And finally, the zoning variance will result in substantial justice being done. Because we do not see that there is a legitimate hardship in this case, and because detached garages are prohibited in all residential zoning districts for every homeowner, we feel like denial of this variance request would be a fair application of Title 20. So we are recommending denial of the variance request. That is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Is there any questions for staff?
The purpose of Title 20, in particular the prohibition of an accessory structure in front of a house, what is the purpose of that?
One of the goals stated is to promote orderly development, and the purpose of preventing accessory structures in front of houses is because we want, the city wants wants streets that are fronted with houses, not garages or other detached accessory structures.
So it's an aesthetic.
It's mainly an aesthetic goal.
Thank you.
My question is if there's any precedent at all for some land being grandfathered in, so to speak, having had construction occur on the lot during a certain title or a certain set of zoning laws, and then allowing them to kind of use those zoning laws even though the zoning laws had changed.
In cases where, an entire house is constructed, for example, we would consider that a legal non-conforming structure. But in that case, the normal zoning laws would not apply. But I'm not aware of any precedent for where a structure was built, just a portion of the structure, and I'm not aware of any precedent for how we would apply current zoning rules to that part of a structure.
Thank you.
Is there an applicant or the applicant's representative?
Yeah, Dale and Jody are here.
Dale and Jody, will you please state your name for the record and just understand that we've read the application and I would highlight the bullet points.
Sure. My name's Dale Horton.
And I'm Jody Miller.
We appreciate the opportunity to offer our comments after seeing the staff's report. And we generally feel like the staff has been fair in representing the request, but we don't think they adequately considered all the aspects nor the situation. I would point out that it's lot 13. I think you had identified the wrong lot on your graphic there, but it's the first lot down from the last. So it's the first lot on the northwest element. It's not critical to the second lot.
It's lot 13?
Yes. Yeah. So it's not a critical issue. So while we think it's largely fair the way they presented the findings, we don't agree with their conclusions of law. In the conclusion of law number 1, the staff report suggests that the hardships presented are not unique to the property. We believe that our situation and resulting hardships are unique, and for the following reasons.
This is as far as it goes. You can
Okay.
scoot over
This one doesn't work?
This one is not working?
Do we need to turn it on?
Yeah, that should...
Yeah.
Is it on now?
No.
Testing 1, 2. All right. Okay, so let me start out with repeat that we have several reasons why we don't think their conclusion, first conclusion of law, why we don't agree with it. First is that the findings of fact acknowledge the house was designed and built and the garage slab poured before the current zoning was adopted. The house and garage slab were located on the lot in accordance with the zoning in place at the time. The house and garage slab were located to take advantage of the sun. It's already been mentioned, solar heating for the house and south yard. The zone changes that occurred in 2009 prevent us from fully completing that design intent. The staff report states the applicants can build either an attached garage on the front of the house or a garage on the side or rear of the property without need of a variance. That is partly true. In fact, due to the floodplain located west of the house, building a garage in the rear of the yard is not an option. Building a garage in the side yard to the south of the house is allowed by the current zoning, but is very undesirable given its impact on the yard, views from the house, and the obstruction of the sun. This effectively leaves only two reasonable and practical options, either a detached or attached garage on the street side of the house. I would point out that in the conclusion of law number 1, it's been referred to before, but he states, the intent of this regulation is to create residential streets lined with homes, not garages, carports, sheds, and other accessory structures. We believe this characterization is somewhat misleading in that the ordinance still allows attached garages in front of the house. We also disagree with conclusion of law number 2, and it states, application of Title 20 accessory structure standards does not result in unnecessary hardships. We acknowledge the staff report's finding of fact number 22 that we may in fact build an attached garage on the front of our house if there's a 15-foot setback on the north property line. We believe the hardships created by that option include wasting the concrete slab that was poured in 1990, the added cost of a new slab, reducing the size of the yard to the south of the garage, and negatively affecting the line of sight, how the house appears from the street, since that effectively places the garage directly in front of the house. When we designed and built our home, we consciously decided to locate the house and garage on the lot with an east-west orientation to emphasize the relationship of the house to the sun. The trade-off was a less traditional house orientation, but at the time an option that was well within the zoning regulations. Now we would like to build a single-car garage with a carport as opposed to a full two-car garage, in part to reduce the scale of the garage structure from the street. We believe the variance requested is the minimum solution necessary to allow us to build a garage consistent with our original design. The staff report's conclusions of law are concerned with the prospect of a detached garage in front of the house. If in fact you choose to deny our variance request for a detached garage with a 9-foot side yard setback, we ask that you will instead grant a variance that allows an attached garage with a 9-foot side yard setback on the location of the existing slab. Granting the 9-foot side yard setback allows more south yard and preserves better sight lines from the street to the house, and the existing concrete slab won't be wasted. Conclusion of law number 3 references the overall purpose of Title 20. We would like to draw your attention to 20.01.090 of Title 20, which states, Missoula's residential zoning districts are primarily intended to create, maintain, and promote a variety of housing opportunities for individual households and to maintain and promote the desired physical character of existing and developing neighborhoods. Missoula's latest growth policy envisions decisions that prioritize the environment and a sustainable community by encouraging renewable energy such as solar and urban gardening. Our house was designed with these concepts in mind, and we believe our variance request, which is in keeping with our original house design, is consistent with both the purpose of Title 20 and Missoula's growth policy. Our neighbors agree that the proposed garage will not detract from the character of the neighborhood. Creekwood Road has a mix of design styles. Most of the houses on the east side of the street were built by a single contractor and are fairly similar in design. The houses on the west side of the street are more varied in style. The side yard setbacks on the street also vary, with many houses having at least one side yard setback less than 15 feet. This was, of course, because they were built before the 15-foot side yard requirement was in place. Our point is simply that variations in side yard setback are common on Creekwood Road. The variance regarding the side yard setback will not be out of character with the neighborhood. Conclusion of law number 4 states that denying our variance request will result in substantial justice being done. However, we think that both public interests and individual hardships will best be served by granting the variance. Denying the variance request will focus on strict enforcement of the changed zoning regulations rather than on providing public and individual benefits. Thanks.
Is there any questions for the applicant? Thanks for your testimony. Is there anyone supporting the application in the room? Is there anyone opposing the application in the room? Okay, we're going to close public testimony. Board discussion.
I drove through this neighborhood today because I wanted to just get an idea of what the other houses in the neighborhood were like. Because my perception was that the law was primarily aesthetic. The zoning changed to prevent garages in front. What I saw was that there were no detached garages in front of any houses along that street. However, there were quite a few attached garages directly in front of houses that were so large as to completely obstruct the house. So the aesthetic argument against a garage in front of the house, I don't think really holds in this case for the neighborhood. I think putting the garage where they have designed it is in keeping with the aesthetic of the neighborhood. So I made several notes. A lot of them were very similar to what the applicant Dale, thank you, said, in that the hardship is the additional expense of removing or moving the existing slab. The minimum variance is approving the garage as drawn, because that uses the existing infrastructure. And I think it is consistent with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And I think substantial justice would be to minimize waste and minimize extra expense by the homeowners.
Any other discussion?
I just want to put it on the record that I will be abstaining from voting on this. I have a working relationship with Ms. Miller, and I don't want to have there to be any appearance of a conflict of interest, so I'm just going to stay out of the vote.
Thanks. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the variance as requested. In my mind, there's not really an aesthetic difference between an attached and a detached, so if they prefer it to be detached, that's fine.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I think there needs to be just some short discussion. I would propose, as far as making the motion, that we strike paragraph 22 from the findings of fact in the staff report. And so I guess to be technically proper, I would make a motion to strike finding of fact number 22 from the staff report.
Item number 22. So Title 20 allows attached garages on the front of houses. The applicants can build a garage attached to the front of their house. The attached garage would need to be 15 feet from the north side of the property line and 25 feet from the front property line to meet minimum setback requirements for primary structures in R20 districts. You're saying strike that?
Yes, for purposes of making a motion to approve. I'm saying to strike paragraph 22 from the staff report, or to make a modification to it in order to make a recommended motion to approve. So I move to strike finding of fact number 22. If there's a second to that motion from anybody.
Yeah, so I think what we learned last time, Denise, is if we go in opposition of the staff report, then we would have to draft conditions that support the variance.
Well, I think that, was it Hans, that you made some, who was it that made some? Yes, made the motion, and I think what you said could be some of your findings of fact, too, and we have those on the record, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then any other that you think would be good to bring into the document right now.
Okay.
And that way we won't need to bring it back. I mean, you will create your findings of facts here.
Denise, do you think we need to go through each item? All 25 items?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we won't need to keep this staff report if you can, give us enough findings of facts here tonight. And you might want to repeat what you had said, which would be helpful.
Hans, would you entertain a friendly amendment to your motion?
Certainly.
Okay. I would then move to amend the motion to have it read, the Board of Adjustment approved the request by Dale Horton and Jody Miller to build a detached garage in front of their house on property described as Eastbrook Addition, Lot 13, commonly known as 3713 Creekwood Road, as outlined in their application materials. The approval is in accordance with the applicant's packet, public comment, findings of fact as modified by striking paragraph 22 from the findings of fact in the staff report, and the conclusions of law as evident from the applicant's presentation and Hans Hoffman's points during the board discussion on the application.
What he said.
So John had an original motion. You strike that. There was no second. We had a discussion. So stricken. And is there a second on John's friendly amendment to Hans' motion?
I'll second John's amendment to the motion.
Any discussion?
While I'm not voting, I just, I don't quite, maybe I just don't understand procedurally, but I don't believe there's any fundamental issue with finding of fact number 22 that I can see, unless you think it has some effect on the...
I just think it's unnecessary for purposes of the motion.
Okay, that makes more sense. I just wasn't quite sure why we were striking it, so just was trying to clarify. Thanks.
I apologize. I'm just going to read it again. Denise, are you comfortable with our, from a staff's perspective, are you comfortable with our?
I think we can put that together. What happens after this is we send, we have to file at the clerk and recorder's office the outcome of this, and so we will use what you've said here, and that will be in the letter to let them know about the results, and also what will be filed at the clerk and recorder's office.
Thank you. Okay, so we had a second. We had any more discussion? Roll call vote.
Andy Short?
No.
John Harrell?
Yes.
Zach Reimer?
No.
Hans Hoffman?
Yes.
Patrick Brittigum?
Abstain.
James Sage?
Yes.
I have 3 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention.
Denise?
Denise Alexander, Development Services. You need 4 votes to approve a variance. So, I mean, you could ask if anyone wants to change their vote, but that's one thing you could do.
Would anybody like to change their vote? Motion fails.
Correct.
Would anyone like to make another motion?
At this point, what is the homeowner's recourse? Can they reapply and hope for additional members to be present at the next meeting?
Yeah, yes, they can. Or maybe with a different idea. Yeah. It probably, I'm trying to think about this for the number of people that are here. We might want to then make a motion to deny it, but we, because we don't need four people's votes for a denial. It's only for an approval. So we might have, it might be good to have that on the record.
Yeah, and just as a procedural thing, as the chairman, I cannot make a motion.
I'd move to deny the requested variance as presented by the staff.
Do I have a second?
Can I second myself? I don't think so.
I don't think you can. I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote.
Andy Short,
Yes.
John Harrell,
No.
Zach Reimer,
Yes.
Hans Hoffman,
No.
Patrick Brittigum,
Abstain.
James Sage.
No.
I have 2 yes, 3 no, 1 abstention.
So I believe in this situation, the variance is denied.
Can I ask those who have voted to deny it, is there any modification to the motion that would change your vote?
If I guess it's allowed by the rules and the chair, I can say something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
board discussion.
Yeah, I suppose I was not convinced that the hardship arose from the land necessarily. It seemed like the hardship, and I guess I should make a point that my conscience says maybe this is a bit of a hardship and I would like to grant this type of a variance, but it doesn't seem to be in our scope, so to speak. It doesn't seem to be that the land caused the hardship. I understand that the creek is running in the backside, and that would make it difficult and impossible to build the structure on the back end of the property. But it seems like the hardship came from decisions, and this is why I kind of asked that precedence question. It seems like the decisions that were made with the best possible knowledge, and you should have expected to, the applicant should have expected to be able to build their structure, long-term, indefinitely into the future. But the laws changed, and I think that our board's mission is to use the code and stay within our purview, so to speak. If you have any questions, follow up that. I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, no, I don't believe there's anything that would change my mind, Hans.
I guess the only thing I would say is that I believe that the purpose of this board is to adjudicate when there are things that come up that are, for one reason or another, a special case. Had they applied to build this structure after Title 20 was approved, and obviously it would have been denied. But because the structure was applied for prior to that and construction commenced prior to that, then I see that it does fall under our purview because it becomes a special case where they will be undertaking additional expense in order to put the structure where it needs to be by current code. But minimal expense and also no additional waste going to landfills by using the existing slab. So.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I agree. I agree with those points. I suppose my biggest concern was the precedent question. If this applies in this case, would we see more of these types of requests from R20 all over the city? Which could definitely change the face of the city and the aesthetic of the city. I'm not a big fan of the slippery slope argument, but it seems to me that is kind of our mission, our guide to do this. And I could be wrong, and if I am, I'm happy to accept that feedback.
Denise Alexander, you asked about it being legal non-conforming, but the concrete that was poured is not a building. If the garage had started to be built or is built, then it would become legal non-conforming. But because it wasn't built, then there's not that there. It doesn't apply.
So, Denise, help me out a little bit. I believe the variance is denied. That's where we stand.
Excuse me, I didn't get that.
The variance is denied?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've had public comment, we've closed the hearing, and we've had a board discussion, we voted. The variance is denied. Most jurisdictions allow you to require you to wait 2 years to reapply again. That's not the case in the city of Missoula. But just to continue this hearing, we would like to move on to the next item.
For the record, my name is Andrew Bond with Development Services. This is a variance request to expand our residential storage facility owned by Jay and Deborah Getz, which is non-conforming use within an RT zoning district where the use is otherwise prohibited. The request tonight comes from the property owners, Mr. and Mrs. Chinsky, and their representative, Kadidik, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. The subject property is located at 2110 and 2122 River Road near the intersection of River Road and North Curtis Street. It is located in the City of Missoula, Ward 6, and is in the River Road Neighborhood Council. The legal description of the property is the west half of Lot 26 in the Coben and Dinsmore Orchard Homes, number 1. The main lot is 2.5 acres, and that's the property that we're discussing this evening. And the adjacent property that belongs to the Getz is Lot 27, which is roughly 5 acres. Here's a view of the River Road neighborhood. The subject property is roughly between middle of Russell and Reserve Street, with residential and a gravel pit to the north and some residential and agricultural use to the south. This is a close-up of the applicant's property. The Getz existing storage facility and structure and personal home are to the left of the red line. The Chinsky's property is located between the red and green line, where the existing home and trailer are located. And I do apologize, you can't really see the green, but it's there. And east of the green line is the property that's containing a home and an excavation company. The city's growth policy recommends a land use designation of residential medium, which recommends a density of 3 to 11 dwelling units per acre. RT10, R8, R5.4, and RT 5.4 are the typical zoning districts assigned to this growth policy designation. Residential medium land use is assigned to areas that already establish residential neighborhoods and acknowledge single-dwelling residential building types as a primary use with the potential for an accessory dwelling unit. The zoning of the parcel is RT10. RT10 permits detached and 2-unit houses. Minimum parcel size is 10,000 square feet. The site as it's currently sized would allow for roughly 10 dwelling units. The use of a residential storage facility is prohibited in this district. The Getz property was annexed into the city in 2014. That's directly to the left of the highlighted area. The original zoning for that area was CRR3 in the county. In 2006, the Getz were granted approval with a special exemption from the County Board of Adjustments. The special exemption allows for residential storage and so on to be permitted on a case-by-case basis. When the property was brought into the city, the storage facility became an existing legal non-conforming. Sorry, forgot that was there. Detailed in the letter from the Chinskys, they wish to sell the property to the Getz family due to health reasons and the added financial strain in their living situation. In addition to the letter, the representative, Jesse Katadik, supplied a memo that points out the four variance criteria and lists reasons of support for the application. The variance is required in order to expand a non-conforming use. The request is allowed under the Missoula Municipal Code, which states that non-conforming uses other than those authorized with the administrative adjustment may be approved as a variance in accordance with the variance process in Title 20. Here is the site plan of the proposed site. The proposed building, which is immediately east to the Getz property, the Getz personal home, is meeting all required setbacks, supplying the minimum landscaping, and providing a new ADA parking spot outside the enclosed building. This is a proposed elevation of the facility adjacent to River Road. This is a view from the property's eastern edge. Right-of-way improvements, including sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and boulevard trees, will be required if the application is approved. The new exit-only egress is proposed where the trailer is currently located. Development Services mailed 9 notices to adjacent property owners and posted on site. City agencies were also notified of this application. We received 13 comments from nearby property owners prior to the packet being sent to you guys. After the packet was sent out, we received a petition against the application with 10 signatures and 2 additional comments from nearby property owners. In total, we have 9 properties for and 9 properties against for the variance application. If you take a look at the screen, the yellow stars represent the properties that were for the application, and the red represent the ones that were against. Several comments were also received from public agencies. These included notes pertaining to street tree treatments from the urban forester and a variety of requirements from the engineering division. Sorry. This is where like congregation of red, and then there's yellows right here. The variance approval requires meeting criteria, which are shown above. Based on the findings of fact that have been summarized in this presentation, provided in the staff report to the board, staff are recommending denial of the variance request based on the following conclusions of law. The application does not comply with the city's adopted growth policy and is prohibited in the RT zoning district. There are no special conditions of the land that create a hardship prohibiting this property from being used for any of the allowed uses within RT10. Financial hardship is not a qualifying option for hardship. The Board of Adjustments denied the application that was similar in significant detail in July of 2017. There have been no changes to policy or regulations since then to affect a different decision of the similar request. And finally, the zoning variance will not result in substantial justice being done. It would be in spite of opposition to the expansion of the It would be made in spite of opposition of this expansion as expressed by neighbors. It should also be noted that any hardship aimed at this applicant would require the proposed expansion of a self-created hardship. The applicants have the same rights as the property owners of RT10 to develop in permitted RT10 uses. The staff recommended motion is shown above. That's it.
Thank you. Is the applicant or his or her representative here?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jesse Knadik. I'm an attorney at Warden Thane here in Missoula, and I represent the Chinskys. The Chinskys also have a few things to say after I'm complete, so I will skip over the parts that they intend to address.
Jesse, so just, there are some new board members here, but this will be the third hearing on this one, so I guess hit the high points.
Right.
Please.
So the application is actually different in significant ways from the previous application. Primarily,
Can I ask you just slow down a little bit?
yeah.
Thank you.
So we believe the application is different in a few significant ways. Primarily, I don't think planning, nor from what I can tell, the board seriously or properly considered the situation of the property itself. If you look at the aerial view of the property, it's hemmed in on one side by the currently existing storage units. To the east is what is essentially an industrial storage yard for an excavator right now. Just to the northeast is a large gravel pit. So we're not talking about a pristine, developable residential scenario. So the property itself does suffer from the hardship of where it is, and that hardship is primarily a result of the annexation, because if the property hadn't been annexed, presumably this would be a relatively pain-free expansion of the storage unit, and it would be consistent with the previously existing county zoning. Second, from my understanding of reading the minutes and looking at the findings today and looking at the public comments, all of the opposition is related to traffic. However, since the previous application, the Getzes have installed a computerized tracking system on the gate that everybody uses to access the current storage facility. And in our application letter, we provide a breakdown by month of the trips per day. Currently, with extrapolating the number of storage units that are there now with how many are in the proposal, we're looking at 21 entries per day, if it's 21 additional entries per day if it's developed. Now, with the zoning as it is, as planning has said, there could be at least 10 homes built on this property. There would be significantly more traffic by any standard that planning uses if this was developed to its maximum residential density. And planning doesn't dispute those numbers. I mean, we provided planning, which I don't believe they included in their packet to you, but we included every single entry from November, December, January, and February, broken down by time. And the gate hours are 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., so there's no middle of the night traffic. There's no significant late night traffic. And in any event, the traffic as a legitimate opposition to it just makes no sense, because you're looking at 10 times the traffic if it was developed in a residential manner. Second, there's the need aspect of it. There's a significant need for storage, small-scale storage for residential type uses in central Missoula. All of the places in central Missoula are full. They all have waiting lists. And this specific development is extremely close to Silver Park and the Wyoming Street developments. And based on the situation of the property in terms of the surrounding properties, we believe that this is the highest and best use of this property at this time. And therefore, we think this is a significantly different application than it was last time because we have the hard evidence related to traffic, which the board voted last time. It was a split decision. It was 3-2 to deny. And so we're really hoping that based on those facts, and when you hear also from the Chinskys, and I understand that the hardship is related to the property, but in considering a variance, but I also think when you hear the Chinsky story right now, that should have some effect on that. And I also, Mr. Reimer, I recognize that you, in the previous application, you recognized a concern about setting a precedent, but it's my understanding that the law in Montana is quite clear that decisions of a Board of Adjustment are non-precedential. We can't rely on a previous decision and say you granted a variance in this situation and therefore you must do it here. So it's very much a case-by-case basis. So I hope the board will look at those additional facts and hear what the Chinskys have to say and consider their application. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Jesse.
I don't know how this thing works.
It's very hard of hearing.
I believe it's on. So will you just please state your name?
What that, you go, and you're doing that?
State your name, honey.
What's that?
State your name.
Oh, John Chinsky, my wife Pam, 2122 River Road and 2110 River Road. And our house is on 2122. Is that enough? Okay. I'd like to sort of go with a little background of what we've been there since 1975. I bought the place for my brother and bought 1.25 acres. The rest of it belonged to my brother's father-in-law. So we, after a few years, after his father-in-law let the price go up, we bought it from him. And so we did that with the idea that, we own this land and it's a investment, and as long as we can, we'd like to stay there. We did all of, had a couple steers and we had to irrigate and do all that kind of thing until our kids left, and which were helping me with all the moving the irrigation pipe and all that. But and so we don't do that anymore. The neighbors we have been, especially on the Getz side, have always been good to us. Especially their father used to help us with the animals. He had been working with cattle for years, and once he passed away, and Jay and Debbie were as good to us as folks were too. It wasn't just necessarily like family really, but they were there if we needed help. When we left town for a while, they'd take care of the house and that kind of thing. They have offered us a deal that we thought we'd never see. And I don't think there's anybody else that would ever match that. The things I read in this, the adjustment of this, they say it's justifiable or hardship, and they point the fingers at us that that we were not the ones that are responsible for it, is what they said, I guess. In my eyes, that we didn't really know that this was going to happen where we couldn't decide what we were going to do with the property. We just thought, well, the longer we hang on to it, it's probably worth more, and we'll keep it, and then we'll sell it to whatever. And so we got this offer from Getz's, and just a few of the things means that we can live in our house till we die, or we move, or whatever. Low rent, so we can make the, probably rent for $100 or $1,100 or $1,200 if it were someone else, but it's much less than that. All the amenities as far as moving snow, taking care of the lawn, irrigating, whatever it is, that would be on their say, because they would own the house now, and we will rent from them. My wife Pam had MS at 1933 or 73, and because of that, she cannot get long-term care. She cannot get insurance for that. And if she came down with the, really started to go downhill, it would be very tough to cover those costs because we don't have insurance. I personally do, but she doesn't. Just a couple other things. The things that I read in this adjustment was talked about that this would create a lot of noise, disturbance. To me, that I don't see that at all. I live right next door. The storage units that Getz's have now, I've been out in the back in the field, in back, out doing the yard. I very seldom see a car in there. If I do, I don't hear it. But it's just, there's the most noise that comes from this place, not Getz place, but the noise on the street is because there's a stop sign there. And everybody that's got a hot rod, they think they got to go peeling out there from Curtis, but they have to turn left or right, and that's where all the noise is. In fact, the buildings he has there probably stifles some of the noise coming from Reserve Street. You can hear that all night long, but it's much better than a friend I have that lives right behind, right next to it, and that's really bad. And I know that some of the, what do you call them, the pros and cons, the people of saying, this is a good thing, they'd like to see it. As I understand, and I couldn't hear much of what Jesse was saying, but as I understand, all the people that are involved that are 150 feet from the area voted for, or voted or checked the box where they thought that would be a good thing to do. And this is, I'm just speaking for myself in that we thought we really fell into a miracle when this happened, because I remember when they were putting in the first storage units. I said, well, maybe you want to put some on my place. And he said, well, maybe we will someday. And then when it happened, and what they are giving us for our place and the things to keep us going, it's going to be a hardship if we don't. Along the line, someplace down the line, it's going to be tough for us. You know, you go through 43 years living there and thinking that, you know, you have a little nest here when it comes time to sell and all that. And I just know that there's nobody that can compare with what we have. And so I really would like to see you approve of that, but I guess that's all I have to say. Unless you have questions or something. Do you have any insights, Faye?
No, I just want to say that the traffic is not what you were led to believe that it is. It is so monitored and so well done that you don't even know that it's like that. And I've lived there for 43 years, right next door. I have wonderful neighbors, wonderful neighborhood. It's beautifully maintained. I really would be disappointed if you would turn it into a place for homes, because each home has 2 vehicles, sometimes 3. The traffic in that small area would be unreal. And here it is completely different, completely monitored and regulated and taken care of. Everything around that place. We've had wonderful neighbors for 40-some years. And it's been maintained and taken care of now because of Jay and Debbie. And what was said before is completely not all right. So I would like to clarify that and straighten that up. Whatever happens, I appreciate you listening to us and having understanding into what's going on here, really. And Jesse is right. Just to make an exception doesn't mean it's going to be for everybody. We have a lot of history on River Road, and I like to share with you. I lived there for only 13 years, and we got hit about 13 times. They were all drunk and hit our house, hit our place, not the house, but the yards and stuff. The next door neighbors, or the ones up on Curtis, always knew we were going to get hit before we did, because they could hear the guy revving up at 80-some miles an hour. They were drunk. We'd been drinking and stuff, and it was during the day or night or whatever. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and we like to keep it that way and maintain it. And Getz is one I can't say enough for their parents, and I can't say enough for Jay and Debbie, and to offer us this opportunity of a lifetime for Johnny and me particularly, and still see everything run so beautifully and maintained even after we're gone, that the neighborhood would benefit from it immensely. I hope that you will reconsider everything. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you, Jesse.
Before you guys go, is there any questions for the applicant?
I want to know, why was the property annexed in the first place? You guys lived there at the time, right?
Yes. We asked it not to be. Well, you really want me to tell you exactly why it was done? And what we were told?
Sure.
By somebody on the commissioners? They needed it for the money for the taxes. They wanted more people for the tax base, and they wanted to put us into the city. So that's the long and short of it, if you wanted my honest opinion, and that's what we were told. We were told right by one of the commissioners.
Did you get any benefits from the annexation?
Any benefits? Well, we were supposed to, but the county did as good a job as cleaning off our streets for the winter or whatever took place than the city ever did. City was not as good in maintaining things as the county, if you want the honest answer. That was then.
Sorry?
That was at the time. But we fought it, and we didn't win.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, have you attempted to sell the property to anyone else?
No. Until, have you attempted to sell the property to anybody else? He was born and raised in Missoula. He wants to die here. He wants to be here. My family lives in the South, so you know where I really want to be. But this was like a dream come true, an answer to our prayers. And we can stay where we are and not have to move, at least at this time. And it took us by surprise. But after a lot of prayer and consideration, we realized this was God's way of helping us and taking care of us. And that's the long and short of it.
So your application states that the hardship is financial and that you wouldn't be able to get a deal as advantageous to you from anyone else.
Never.
How do you know that?
Because they would want to buy the property, but then they want us to move. They want us to leave the property.
I thought you haven't tried to sell it.
Pardon?
I thought you haven't tried.
No. He doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to sell. He wants to stay there. And it was like an answer to a prayer. And it's going to be so beautifully maintained and taken care of. And so will we, because we won't have to take care of the place like we do now and have for all these years. But
thank you.
Thank you very much for hearing us and your consideration on all of this. Thank you, Jesse.
I have one follow-up to Hans' question. I believe it's not in this packet that I can see. I don't know if Andrew or someone can comment, but was the petition to annex the property, I thought there was a petition to annex the property made by Mr. Getz, if I understood that correctly. So the initial petition to annex the property into the city was made by Mr. Getz? I might be misunderstanding that.
Yeah, can we hold that question just when we come back to staff?
Sure. Yep. Sorry, I didn't know if Jesse would have that answer. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Is there anyone in the room that's supporting the application that would like to speak? Is there anyone opposing the application? Sorry.
I'm not opposed.
Come on up. Yeah, I don't like the way we state that either. I just want to I might change that. Just have people come up and talk. But yeah, please state your name for.
Gerald Salter, trustee for the property bordering to the north of the Chinsky residences and also to the Getz's residence.
Gerald?
Gerald Salter, S-A-U-L-T-E-R. And I originally, when this zoning, or when this was requested before, we had a concern over the irrigation ditch being moved closer to our property line. And since then, Jay has got the engineers in there and has it figured out how to move it satisfactorily and compacted the dirt, or will compact the dirt and have a steel culvert in place. So I at this time have no qualms if this follows through with that for the ditch company. And I'm also on the board for the ditch company. And when he presented this at the ditch meeting, and it went okay with the ditch board, so they're content with it.
Joe, what ditch company is it?
Orchard Homes Ditch Company.
Orchard Homes Ditch. Thanks.
It's not the county ditch, it's a private ditch. Oldest one in the state. Okay, I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of what you said, your relationship to the property to the north and to the Getz property.
Oh, I border it to the north, and the concern was the irrigation ditch
Okay.
would need to be,
So you own the property to the north?
yes.
Okay, copy, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else like to talk about the project? Anyone opposed that would like to talk? Please come up and state your name.
My name is Michael Hughes, and I live at 630 Luella Lane, which is kitty corner right across the street from the entrance to the existing storage facility. I had a couple questions or comments about their traffic counts that they supplied. They're saying over the last 4 months they averaged 25 and a half entries per day. Well, I kind of figure, like, they also mentioned that the average trips per house that would, like, if it was to be in that neighborhood, is 10 trips a day. I think of a trip as either coming or going. So when they say they only have 25 and a half entries a day, I mean, when you enter the storage units, you also have to leave. So that right there, in my mind, doubles the trips per day to, ballpark 50. And if they're gonna, not quite double what their storage units they're putting in, that's gonna, roughly translate to 100 trips per day, which is the exact same as if it was to develop with a housing development. So it's not significantly or dramatically less traffic like they said. Another comment on, and I didn't see on their site plan, they're proposing a exit-only entrance or exit-only on the southeast corner of the property, and it doesn't even show that on the site plan. I don't know if that was an omission or if that's been taken out, but if it is supposed to be there, looking at the dimensions on the site plan, it shows it's 15 feet from the edge of building to the fence line, and then it's going to have a 6-foot landscape buffer, so that only leaves a 9-foot driving lane to get out of the storage units. And most vehicles, especially trucks that would be accessing the storage facility, are 8.5 feet wide, so that's only going to leave them like 3 inches of clearance on each side, which in turn, in my mind, is going to force everybody out the same gate that they came in, and increase the traffic to where it affects us. They mentioned their landscaping, I think, was above what was required, but again, looking at their site plan, that like roughly a quarter of their landscaping is completely behind one of the buildings where the ditch is, so nobody will ever see it. And then as far as the Chinskys with a medical or a substantial hardship, I understand they're in a medical condition, and that's unfortunate, and I truly feel bad for them, but I don't think a medical condition is justification for a zoning variance. And that's it.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Michael Hughes.
Michael. Thanks, Michael.
Yep.
My name's John Hughes. I live right beside the storage units, and going to have to bear with me. I'm not a good talker. But I'm kind of going to start from the top again. We come down here, Mr. Getz applied for a storage unit, and the board went ahead and passed that with a small office building. Well, years later, after he got all the legal aspects of his land dealt with, we come back down here for another one, and storage units basically stayed the same. We went to a huge 2-story office building. One of the board members asked, he says, what is the second story going to be used for? He says, well, it's the paper trail for storage unit. Well, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because everything is done on a computer. But the board went ahead and passed this with the stipulation the second floor would have no offices, and it would be all open floor plan. So we come down to the next one, and one of the city officials here come up and told the board and the people who were here, Mr. Getz had been issued 3 stop work orders, and the first 2 he totally ignored, kept on building. Well, the board did not approve his land going in to be commercial. So It brings us to the next one, the hardship that Mr. Getz applied for. Some of the things that he said, the first thing he said is the Chinskys are in such bad health, there is no way that they can get out to attend this meeting tonight. Well, I'm glad to see them up and around, but you know, this winter I see them snow blowing their driveway. So that really wasn't 100% true what Mr. Getz told the board. Another thing he said is that he has a waiting list that's 30 and 40 units that people want to rent his units with. Well, as soon as this meeting was over, guess what's out in the front of his property? Units available. The sign's been there off and on, stayed there for 2 months, and it's still occasionally there. Another thing that Mr. Getz told the board, he says, as I speak, I have a contractor hired to haul all my snow out, so none of the parking, the proposed parking that he went to, he says none of the snow will be there. Well, guess, we didn't get that much snow this year, but that's where he put every bit of his snow. It brings us to this one, you know, money is kind of immaterial, but the Chinskys are stating that the property that Getz's are giving them $510,000 for this property. Well, I called 2 different real estate agencies, and they basically told me without seeing the land, we cannot give an accurate appraisal. But it says 2.5 acres, Orchard Homes, house with a garage. They said probably $400,000 to $450,000. So who that's a businessman overpays like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 just to be a nice guy? Absolutely nobody. You know, that doesn't make sense. I don't agree with the numbers that Getz has at all. I actually it must have been, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, they put a subdivision right across from my right next to my property, which has 15 houses in it. I set up a camera down there for 24 hours. They had 23 cars coming and going in that subdivision. The subdivision right across the street has 26 houses. I set up a camera. It had 35 cars coming and going in a 24-hour period. And the thing that, you know, that Getz has a computer thing here. So what happens, and I live right beside this, I see it every day. And during the summertime, you cannot believe the amount of traffic that a storage unit creates. But what happens, the people come up and hit the keypad to get out. Well, you have 2 cars over here that are wanting to come in. So those 2 cars, as soon as the gate goes up, this guy drives out, the gate stays up for 30 seconds. So these 2 people come in with a free pass. They're not even registered. And then the guy that wants to come out, that is coming out in a different way, so those cars ain't even registered into what he has his numbers here for. And another thing that I called 2 of the bigger honest storage units in town, and they told me the same thing. It's like any business, slowest time of year is winter time. They basically told me the storage units are really busy from May until November, depending on the weather. And like I say, during the summertime, I mean, it's really good right now, don't get me wrong. But during the summertime, you cannot believe how many cars go in and out of the storage unit. It's just unbelievable. Another thing that Mr. Getz is failing to tell everybody is his 2 back units are basically for motor homes and boats and campers and motorcycles and nice cars. Well, who uses that stuff during the wintertime? Nobody. So those units back there aren't even coming in and out, so that's going to, during the summertime, his numbers are going to triple of the cars coming in and out of there. The people that signed this petition, Chris could not be here. Chris Lott lives right across the street. He could not be here tonight on account of other obligations, but this is what he asked me to say. He is tired of all the traffic. And the thing that everybody is concerned with is the traffic. I mean, it's unbelievable if you live right there. But what he said, his house will be for sale between 6 and 8 weeks. He says, I'm done. He says, I'm out of there. There's 4 houses that are basically right across from the River Road storage units. All those people signed it. And then there's an alley that's right kitty corner from Getz's entrance. That's the only way they can get to their garage is down this alley. And every one of those people signed it. And it's not that they're not against the storage units. I don't think anybody's against the storage units. But the biggest concern that everybody has, you have an entrance here and an exit here, which is 640 feet apart. I mean, who tries to run a business that's, 640 feet apart? You have cars coming in here. You're going to add, like I say, his numbers are going to triple during the summertime. And then you're going to add another 344 units. So, and another thing, you have semis that come in there. Okay, they cannot turn around on account of the storage units. So they got to back up totally out of the storage units and back up on the River Road. And you're going to try to bring in 100, 150 cars through this gate. It's going to be, like I said the last time, a huge traffic jam is what it's going to be. And that's consensus of everybody that signed this. That's what they're concerned with, is the traffic. Everybody says we're not against the storage units. Let them go down there, put in an entrance and an exit down there. Let them put up with the traffic and the chaos for those 344 units. Great. I don't think really anybody has a whole concern about that. They just don't want to have 750 units and have everybody come into the same gate. And another thing, Mr. Getz has a tendency to tell the board different things that he's actually going to do and does just the opposite. I mean, this whole time, in one of his first letters, his access time was from 7 to 9. Well, that has never been enforced except for the last 4 months that these storage units have been there. It's been a 24/7 deal. And another thing, Mr. Getz isn't supposed to be running a business out of there. He puts in the paper that his business is located on Curtis and River Road, centrally in Missoula. I have pictures of this if the board would like to see it. Be happy to answer any questions. But that's
Thanks, John.
That's the biggest thing, is the traffic. And like I say, everybody that signed this, put it in and out there, no problem. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anybody else that would like to talk? Okay. Public testimony is complete. Do we have a motion?
I move to deny the request.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Was there an opportunity to get my question answered by the staff?
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, that's okay.
Yeah, no, I haven't eaten in a little while. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
Could you possibly restate the question?
Yeah, I was just curious. I thought I saw in the packet of information that came out digitally that there was a petition to annex the Getz property filed by the Getz family, then that was how the property came into city.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And then I guess one other item that goes with that, and pertaining to the annexation of the Chinsky's property, in a typical sense, if they were to have to connect to city sewer, or, well, now city water as well, they would be, essentially, the council would make a decision as if they wanted to incorporate them into the city, or essentially offer them the right to sign a waiver of right to protest and delay that action until the city was ready to bring them into the city. So
yeah, and Andrew, just don't forget to state your name.
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
I know it's
Thank you.
obvious.
And I just wanted to add that that was the reason why Mr. Gatz's property was annexed, was because he needed sewer. And that since there were already a lot of lots there that had been annexed, then it was required that they be immediately annexed to get the sewer.
Thanks.
I apologize again, Patrick. Sorry. Any other discussion? Denise?
I was wondering if you could ask, this is John, who was the last one who gave testimony, what he said that there's an advertisement for his business at that location, and does that mean that I don't understand what that meant, whether it's the storage business or another business?
John, could you come up and answer a question for us, just real quick?
It's advertised in his real estate.
Sorry, will you state your name? For the record?
Sorry. John Hughes. No.
Yes, thanks.
He's advertising his real estate business in the Missoulian. And right there, with the address right here, conveniently located at the corner of Curtis and River Road.
Okay. Thank you, John.
You bet. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion from the board?
I guess I would just, one clarification, Hans, your motion to deny is the staff's recommended motion in the staff report, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Is it important that I read that as written?
I think as long as we know that it's, your motion is the staff's recommended motion, that is sufficient for me.
Okay, let me amend my motion to being, I recommend that we deny based on the staff's recommendations.
Roll call vote.
Andy Short?
Yes.
Actually, can we get a second on that since it was amended? Thank you.
Thanks, Hans.
You're welcome.
Yeah, amended motion, second. Is there a second?
I'll second the amended motion.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
For the record, the existing motion does identify the findings of fact and conclusions of law as established in the staff report. The roll call vote, Andy Short.
Yes.
John Harrell.
Yes.
Zach Reimer.
Yes.
Hans Hoffman.
Yes.
Patrick Britigam.
Yes.
James Sage.
Yes.
I have a 6 yes vote.
Variance is denied. That closes the second public hearing. Is there any other business? Do we have I can't remember now, but do we have a meeting next month?
Not at this time.
Not at this time?
Yeah, I would need to look at the calendar, but there has not been an application that's come in yet.
Okay.
So.
Thanks. We are adjourned.